Okay, so welcome back to another video. In today's video, I'm trying to be a bit more instructional. We're working on my current daily driver, a VRX Lancer. So the problem with this one is very hard to diagnose. You need a very good ear to actually hear what's going on. So we'll just sit this one here. Almost no noise at all. So off the bat, you think a new belt. It's got a new belt on it. The tensioner is shot and it's not pulling tight enough, so it needs a tensioner. But also, if you listen very closely to the gearbox, which I doubt you'll be able to hear on this, the throwout bearing has decided it doesn't want to do its job properly anymore, so it's just sitting there vibrating around. So in order to change that, you're pulling the gearbox out anyway, so we're going to do a clutch while we're there. So we'll drive this one on into the shed, put it on some jack stands, rip the wheels off, and then we'll start with the tensioner because it's a bit easier and quicker. Just show you how to do all that, and then we'll figure it out together and start taking the gearbox out of this thing. So stay tuned and enjoy the video. Okay, so we are in the shed now with the Lancer and we are ready to get started. So just to make it easier for myself, I think I'm going to do the belt tensioner first, because we're working on opposite sides, which is quite annoying. So I'm gonna have to pull apart some of this side. Tensioner is just down the bottom there. So I'm gonna jack it up, rip both the wheels off because the drive shafts have to come out anyway, and it's easier to do the tensioner from the bottom because it's pretty much just behind there. And then I'm going to start taking all of this stuff out to give myself room to work here. The starter motor bolts are behind the exhaust there, so you should be able to get on them nice and easy. But yeah, so let's crack on and get to work on this thing. And I'm going to try and get a time lapse of this one. I'm going to jack it up and then start a time lapse of pulling the wheels and drive shaft out of this side, give myself room, and then changing the tensioner. So let's get into it. Okay, so we've got it up on stands now on each side. Wheel off. We're going to leave the drive shaft in for now. There's enough room in there to do the tensioner, so it's pretty much right here. So there's that bolt and the bolt through the middle. So we're going to de-slacken it to take our belt off. If you're unsure how your belt goes, it's quite easy just to draw a little mud map, or just like get a piece of paper, draw each of your pulleys, and then just a quick line to trace where it goes. I have done this belt a few times, so I'm familiar with how it goes now, so I'm not going to need to do that. But these are, I'm pretty sure they're reverse thread, because you're going to pull it one way to actually adjust and get the belt off, and then you got to take it off the other way, depending what that is. So we'll do that shortly. But yeah, so I'm going to slacken it, take the belt out, and then just remove the pulley. Okay, so far just the airbox and battery have been taken out. Now this is what we're dealing with. So I've loosened off my like selector bracket. Then I'm going to pop these off and disconnect them, and then slowly just start disconnecting everything that is attached to the gearbox. So we'll crack on with that now. Okay, so now we've finally got everything off the gearbox. So our shift levers have like, I'll try and put the light in focus. They have little pins that you pull off and then they kind of just slide off like that. And then I've just undone where they bolt onto the gearbox. So this whole bracket assembly is loose. All my wiring has been separated from the gearbox. And I've just started doing the top bell housing bolts now. So I've got the starter 2 out and the top 2 in that one. So the rest I should be able to do like from the bottom or get underneath. My slave is also hanging out. I've just unbolted it and taken the soft lines off and just kind of got it out of the way. So the plan of attack now is to do the rest of the bell housing bolts, but we're going to drop the motor onto the K-frame, well, the cross member, because it's already here and it has to come off anyway. Like that whole frame has to come out so we can drop it. So the last 2 things we're going to be undoing these gearbox mounts here, and then we can get some angle on it and then undo that and kind of slide it down and pull it out. So not much longer now. Okay, so we are back and it is another day. So we did manage to get the gearbox and clutch out, and the clutch itself isn't actually too worn. It's getting close. There's probably be a couple thousand still left in it. And what I thought was noise from the throw-up bearing, I thought it was kind of chattering on the shaft, but it has actually, my clutch pack has decided to become a maraca. So it's just sitting there, the springs have lost tension, so they're just sitting there jiggling all noisy. Did go down and get the flywheel machine, so if you're doing a clutch at home, just go down and get your flywheel machine. It'll cost between $20 to $50. I think you can get mobile people come out and do it, they charge a bit more. And the new clutch is not a maraca, so nice and tight. So the noise, it's not coming from the throw-up bearing essentially, but it's coming out from the clutch itself. So it's just sitting there at idle, just shaking, and that's that slight rattle I've got. And what won't help is the fact that every engine mount is almost completely torn. So I've got all the engine mounts in, and while I'm here I found a slight weep on my radiator, so I'm going to throw a new radiator in as well. Just everything's out, so I may as well do it now. So all engine mounts, new clutch, new radiator, and yeah, pretty much a new car. And so when putting your flywheel back in, just Loctite all your bolts, do them nice and tight, and then just assemble it from there. So there is no assembly tool with this clutch, but they're quite easy to do by eye. Just make sure it's centered. And yeah, so we'll probably end up getting the box back in, and I'll end up skipping majority of putting it in and fiddling with all the bolts and all that, and I'll just end up cutting towards somewhere near the end and it's ready to run or something like that, so the video isn't too drawn out. But it's not a very hard process, it's quite self-explanatory. So whatever you take out, just put back in. But yeah, so we'll come back soon when the car's ready to run. Okay, so gearbox is back in now. We still have the radiator to do. We've done the lower front and rear engine mounts, so we're at pretty much this stage where we started. So I'm just going to pretty much just go over everything, make sure that I have actually tightened them all, because you know there is quite a few bolts when you're doing stuff like this, so it doesn't hurt just to, once you think you're done, just go and double check it all. But yeah, pretty much all that needs to happen now is the battery sit back in here, and then the intake tube comes to here, but I'm going to leave that out until I change this radiator. But yeah, the gearbox, they aren't too heavy, so we've just, it's probably not the most desired way to do it, but just got down there with a mate and we kind of just lifted it out, because we're working with limited room kind of under the car as well, so it's not like we can get too many jacks up in there and position them around, and they aren't too heavy. The one thing you have to remember if you're doing this is because when you pull your drive shafts out and you leak a bit of fluid, just to top it up when you get towards the end and you'll finish. So I'll be topping that up, making sure it's full. But yeah, so this is the stage we're up to now, so pretty much just the tidy up work now and finish it off. So not much longer. We'll probably cut to the end with a video of it running, so we'll see you then. Okay, so to wrap off this video on the clutch, I did record the end of it in starting the car, but all the files have corrupted. Great fun. So I don't have the end of that job, but pretty much everything went back together. Obviously very straightforward. And just as a bit of a teaser for next month's video, what's coming is me and a few mates are going out to Swan Gully for a friend's birthday. And I'm not going to be taking the Cruiser this time. Instead, I've got the Sierra running. So take up a trailer, take the Sierra out. So it's just rear locked with a weldy. I've just welded the rear diff in it. Just 1.3 litre still. It's got 31s on it. Very basic. So it should be a bit of fun. Like, got my sliders on there, got the winch, you know, obviously to pull other cars out, because I won't need it in this thing. This thing never gets stuck. But yeah, so next month will be the Swan Gully video. So should have some decent content of some good tracks. We're going with a twin locked 80 series, a twin lock Patrol, and then a few other cars here and there. So yeah, as always, thank you all for watching. I hope this clutch tutorial was helpful, and stay tuned for the next video.